A house becomes a home only when people living in it connect with it and live it to the fullest. That's how the Budigere family feels about their dream home. And this dream was transformed into reality by Mr. Sanjay Mohe, an architect by profession and designer of this beautiful house. But there's a long story behind it. I was invited to the Budigere house, which is close to Sanjay Mohe's heart, not surprising as he has breathed nature into this creation. The five elements of nature find their natural presence within this space. Owned by Mr. B.K. Surendra, Budigere House is situated in Indiranagar, Bangalore. You build yourself a metropolitan abode with an intention of having a perfect home with a perfect view. 2 years down the line, houses on the other side either block or suck in the natural view. For the fear that your neighbors might get an unscheduled preview of a bedroom, you keep the curtains drawn 24/7. The Budigere's need for the natural essence within their space shaped their new home, and this deviation in their thought brought Mr. Sanjay Mohe in the picture.
Actually, it is close to our heart. In fact, the way it is conceived right from the beginning, the client's role becomes quite an important thing, and they are quite sensitive people. The way it all started was they were staying in this traditional house of theirs, and then they wanted to build their own house, and they had their dreams, and then they went and saw some of the houses constructed by us, and then they would always come and relate to that house, this house and all, and can we have this part of that. And so that's how that whole process of developing started. But one thing which is kind of common in all our houses is the openness, literally removing of the walls and playing with the levels and of course the light and all. So the openness is something which is very fundamental to this. And this family being so close to each other, we wanted to have that closeness, irrespective of whichever level you stay. So even if you are, say, staying on the upper level, or there's always a visual contact. You can talk to each other. We always wanted to have walls as white. That's how it all started. But there was always a lot of debate about what flooring to be used, and right from the beginning when we conceived it, we always wanted to have some kind of a slate kind of a finish with that kind of texture, mainly to give warmth and to scale down the spaces. But in between there were a lot of options which were considered, but finally all of us, including all family members, they all liked this leatherite finish, and then we sort of decided to stick to black and white. So everything, the whole furniture, most of the whatever the built-in furniture, whatever came in, it has that dark brown or blackish kind of a tinge. And because the light being so important in this house, the way the shadows are cast on the wall, that's why again that having those white wall makes a lot of sense.
The dynamics of the Budigere house is by itself a spectacle. A natural feel blends into the black and white house that being indoors doesn't wall you from the outdoors. Your mind is pleasantly showered by the words openness, warmth, bright and happy. The house covers a prominently defined built-up area of 7,000 square feet. A vast living room, kitchen and the master bedroom form the first level of the house. The second layer consists of the children's bedroom, a family lounge and a guest room. The house features a lot of idiosyncrasies of its own, but the most prominent of all is the visual link that prevails all over the house.
The natural elements, which you can see it in this house as well. We actually, to begin with, when you start designing a thing, we have to respond to these elements. When there's a sloping site, if there are some rocks there, if there are some trees there, we sort of build the whole thing around it and, and try to keep it, try to bring nature and make it part of the built environment as much as possible. Having water inside the house was another important thing. Now that really creates a great ambience. And plus you have a sound of water, which is, when you have a small bubbler on, it has a very soothing effect. But there is a sense of unfolding of the spaces. As you come in, if you just compare it with a traditional courtyard house, Um, Apparently, those courtyard houses, what we had earlier, were the most environmental sensitive houses, because most of the living would happen in the verandas or courtyards. And that's what we sort of want to have it happen. That kind of character we wanted to bring in here. So the way you are sitting here in this space, it is like sitting in a courtyard, and then still you are protected with probably the skylight and grill on the top. Still allows you to have the air movement.
Design through architecture gives Mohe a high, and this is what he lives for. Seeped with creativity, this architect believes that each of his creations hold the singularity with his signature. But here's a hitch. Finding clients with need for such depth in creativity is a challenge. In this fast-moving world, technology also plays a critical role, and imbibing the nuances of this trend is surely an added advantage.
As an architect and creativity, when you're talking about, say, if you compare it with artist, let's say a painter, when a painter paints, he's not bothered about who is going to look at it. He would paint from his heart. He'll just express what he wants to do. But as an architect, there's a different story, because we have to respond to the needs of the people. Firstly, you have to have a client to build something, or you should have a lot of money to build your own house. But most of the time when you build for others, you have to sort of look at their aspiration, their needs. So our whole creativity, when you look at it, it is all based on the needs of the people. So you first fulfill their aspirations, their happiness, and cater, build around that. So whole creativity, and then the technology plays a very important role. So we have to master the technology available to you and work within that. So our creativity is all based on all these different aspects, and then you try to build something out of it. Light and ventilation is something which is probably the most important thing in any piece of architecture. See, without light, there is no existence of the space. If you have a darkness, there is no existence. So if you just imagine this whole idea why we call a house as a shelter, we are sheltering yourself from all the natural elements which are around. So that's how idea of shelter began. But imagine a box where you are inside and you are sheltering it. So you are creating a completely black box, and if you are dwelling inside it, let's say, and you make a puncture and one ray of light comes in, and imagine how important that space would be. The whole space gets energized by that one ray of light. And actually, your whole psychology, your whole behavior pattern, everything gets revolved around that quality of light. So we as an architect, when we start designing, we imagine how much amount of light, how many punctures you should make in that box, and the kind of light which would filter in, how conducive it is for the kind of activity which is happening within. So that's the skill of the architect. It should not be too much, it should not be too less, how it varies from day to night.
Architects are meant to give shape to one of the most important requirements of man. Sanjay observes that there's a fine line between a house and a home, and an architect decides that. At the Budigere house, with Arun on camera, this is Devparna Acharya.